morning. Good morning, my friends. This is the first time I am live on my own Facebook page because this is the first time I felt that it was very important to explain to my fellow Americans that we are no longer a democracy. The authoritarians right now have won. I don't know how many people are going to join me. I have no idea. It doesn't matter. I'm going to read this, and hopefully people will understand. It's called Ensuring Accountability for All Agencies, and it is another executive order. But my friends, democracy in the United States is dead. And if you have a constitution, it means nothing. So here we go. Ensuring Accountability for All Agencies, Executive Order, February 18th, 2025. By the authority vested in me as the President by the Constitution, which no longer exists, and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered, Section 1, Policy and Purpose. The Constitution vests all executive power in the President and charges him with faithfully executing the laws. Since it would be impossible for the President to single-handedly perform all the executive business of the federal government, the Constitution also provides for subordinate officers to assist the President in his executive duties. In the exercise of their often considerable authority, these executive branch officials remain subject to the President's ongoing supervision and control. The President is in turn regularly elected by and accountable to the American people. This is one of the structural safeguards, along with the separation of powers between the executive and legislative branches, regular elections for the Congress, and an independent judiciary whose judges are appointed by the President by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, by which the framers created a government accountable to the American people. However, previous administrations have allowed so-called, quote, independent regulatory agencies, unquote, to operate with minimal presidential supervision. These regulatory agencies currently exercise substantial executive authority without sufficient accountability to the President, and through him to the American people. Moreover, these regulatory agencies have been permitted to promulgate significant regulations without review by the President. These practices undermine such regulatory agencies' accountability to the American people and prevent a unified and coherent execution of federal law. For the federal government to be truly accountable to the American people, officials who wield vast executive power must be supervised and controlled by the people's elected President. I'll read that again. For the federal government to be truly accountable to the American people, officials who wield vast executive power must be supervised and controlled by the people's elected President. Therefore, in order to improve the administration of the executive branch and to increase regulatory officials' accountability to the American people, it shall be the policy of the executive branch to ensure presidential supervision and control of the entire executive branch. Moreover, all executive departments and agencies, including so-called independent agencies, shall submit for review all proposed and final significant regulatory actions to the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs within the Executive Office of the President before publication in the Federal Register. Section 2, definitions. For purposes of this order, the term employees shall have meaning, given that term in Section 2105 of Title V of the United States Code. B, the term independent regulatory agency shall have meaning, given that term in Section 35025 of Title 44 United States Code. This order shall not apply to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System or to the Federal Open Market Committee in conduct of monetary policy. This order shall apply to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System only in connection with its conduct and authorities directly related to its supervision and regulation of financial institutions. The term independent regulatory agency chairman shall mean, with regard to a multi-member independent regulatory agency, the chairman of such agency, and shall mean, with regard to a single-headed independent regulatory agency, such agency's chairman, director, or other presiding officer. D, the term head of an independent regulatory agency shall mean those appointed to supervise independent regulatory agencies and in whom the agency's authorities are generally vested, encompassing the chairman, director, or other presiding officer, as applicable, other members or commissioners or similar such officials with responsibility for supervising such agencies. Section C, OIRA review of agency regulations. A, Section 3B of Executive Order 12866 of September 30th, 1993, Regulatory Planning and Review, as amended, is hereby amended to read as follows. B, agency, unless otherwise indicated, means any authority of the United States that is an agency under 44 U.S.C. 35021 and shall also include the Federal Election Commission. This order shall not apply to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System or the Federal Open Market Committee in its conduct of monetary policy. This order shall apply to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System only in connection with its conduct and authorities directly related to its supervision and regulation of financial institutions. The Director of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, shall provide guidance on implementation of this order to the heads of executive departments and agencies newly submitting regulatory actions under 3B of Executive Order 12866. Agency submissions by independent regulatory agencies under such section shall commence with the earlier of 60 days from the date of this order or completion of such implementation guidance. Section 4, Performance Standards and Management Objectives. The Director of OMB shall establish performance standards and management objectives for independent agency heads as appropriate and consistent with applicable law and report periodically to the President on their performance and efficiency in attaining such standards and objectives. Apportionments, Section 5, for independent regulatory agencies. The Director of OMB shall, on an ongoing basis, A, review independent regulatory agencies' obligations for consistency with the President's policies and priorities, and B, consult with independent regulatory agency chairmen and adjust such agencies' apportionments by activity, function, project, or object as necessary and appropriate to advance the President's policies and priorities. Such adjustments to apportionments may prohibit independent regulatory agencies from expending appropriations on particular activities, functions, projects, or objects, so long as restrictions are consistent with the law. Section 6, additional consultation with the executive office of the president. A. Subject to subsection B, independent regulatory agency chairman shall regularly consult with and coordinate policies and priorities with the directors of OMB, the White House Domestic Policy Council, and the White House National Economic Council. The heads of independent regulatory agencies shall establish a position of White House liaison in their respective agencies. Such position shall be in grade 15 of the general schedule, and shall be placed in Schedule C of accepted service. C. Independent regulatory agency chairman shall submit agency strategic plans developed pursuant to the Government Performance and Results Act of 1993 to the director of OMB for clearance prior to finalization. Section 7, rules of conduct guiding federal employees' interpretation of the law. The president and the attorney general, subject to the president's supervision and control, shall provide authoritative interpretations of the law for executive branch. The president and the attorney general's opinions on questions of law are controlling on all employees in the conduct of their official duties. No employee of the executive branch acting in their official capacity may advance an interpretation of the law as the position of the United States that contravenes the president or the attorney general's opinion on a matter of law, including, but not limited to, the issuance of regulations, guidance, and positions advanced in litigation unless authorized to do so by the president or by writing by the attorney general. Section 8, general provisions. If any provisions of this order or the application of any provision to any person or circumstance is held to be invalid, the remainder of this order and the application of its provisions to any other persons or circumstances shall not be affected thereby. B. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect I. The authority granted by law to an executive department, agency, or head thereof, or 2, the functions of the director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. C, this order shall be implemented with consistent applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. D, the order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law, or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers or employees or agents, or any other person. What's the most important thing here? And I read this because most people won't, and they won't understand it. But the most important, quote, it shall be the policy of the executive branch to ensure presidential supervision and control of the entire executive branch. Moreover, all executive departments and agencies, including so-called independent agencies, shall submit for review all proposed and final significant regulatory actions to the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, OIRA, within the Executive Office of the President before publication in the Federal Register. What does this mean to us? I'm sorry, it's null and void. What it means to us is that we are now in a dictatorship. Nothing can be done in this country without the president or the attorney general. Nothing. This is a presidential action. This did not go through Congress. This did not go through the Senate. It is an executive order. But what it means is that democracy is dead in the United States. Project 2025 is in full swing. I told you so. I told everyone. The Heritage Foundation, the tech bros, the white Christian nationalists, the racists, they're all assembling under President Donald Trump, or maybe dictator Donald Trump. We'll see if we can get any movement on this. But for the most part, people don't understand what this means. And I read it. I read it to you to understand what it means on my own Facebook page. Because as of February 18th, 2025, well, democracy had a good run. Most of you, a lot of you won't understand it. Whoever's left on my Facebook page that voted for the orange one, well, you probably won't understand it, or you might even think this is a good thing, but it's not. We are now a dictatorship. Peace. We are really all in trouble. And even those of you who don't think we are, we're done. Democracy is dead.